That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Guys, I owe y'all a massive, massive thank you. I mean, y'all have been destroying that like button. Y'all have been commenting so much on the videos that this channel is growing way faster than I expected. I think that this channel this offseason may pass our main channel as Dynasty Fantasy Football is growing so fast, and it's by far and away the best way to play fantasy football. And I know we've had so many comments on the videos as of late asking how y'all can get into one of our leagues, play with me, draft with me, trade with me. And here, guys, I'll say one disclaimer, warning, I just crushed almost every single regular Patreon Dynasty League that we had going in 2020. Very excited to crush those leagues again in 2021. And I'm excited to get new leagues going in 2021 for the new subscribers. But I want to let everyone know that's in those existing leagues that I will be collecting league dues this upcoming week. I will also be getting everyone paid out for their 2020 winnings. I'm doing that right now, today actually, as well as yesterday. So we're doing that as fast as possible. Once I get those league dues collected and we figure out what spots are open, then I'm going to have a week of filling dispersal drafts for new subscribers coming in those existing leagues. And then once that is over, then I may start 2 to 3 more leagues based on the demand that we have. So yeah, what I recommend if you want to join one of those Dynasty leagues is either one, go down there and join Patreon right away, because the people on Patreon are the people that are going to get the first notification that we have those league openings. But if you don't want to join Patreon right away, you can join our Dynasty Fantasy Football group chat. Both links are going to be in the description of this video. And there I'll be sending out announcements whenever we have those open spots, whether that's in a dispersal draft or a brand new startup. But I am incredibly excited for that. And now let's get into this video. Don't want to waste any more time. And let's talk about a running back that I had as my running back 1 going into the NFL draft in 2020. And this is Deandre Swift. Okay, guys, if y'all watched the video yesterday on Jonathan Taylor, we are going to do the exact same thing here with Deandre Swift, because it is so important for these players' future outlook that we have the entire picture of what they are, and that includes their profile coming into the NFL. And we know that Deandre Swift was drafted with the 3rd overall pick in the 2nd round of the 2020 NFL draft. And I know this does not pop off the page for a lot of people, but if you are a true diehard Dynasty Fantasy Football player, you understand that this pick range is the prime area where we see these feature down running backs getting selected in today's age of the NFL. I mean, outside of Saquon Barkley, we are very rarely going to see that top 10 running back drafted ever again, I believe, just because the NFL now understands that these running backs really don't make that much of an impact on the field outside of a very small handful, and they would prioritize getting those defensive backs combined with the quarterbacks and wide receivers over the running backs. So an early 2nd round grade here for Deandre Swift is extremely encouraging. And what was also very encouraging coming into the NFL was the fact that he was 21 years old at the time of the NFL draft. Currently, he is 22 years old. This is just like I said with Jonathan Taylor. I mean, you want to see these running backs coming into the NFL at a young age. There have been countless studies that show the hit rate of these younger running backs being a lot higher, because typically if you are a running back coming into the NFL after your junior season, that's because you already have the talent on display where it looks like you're going to be a success at the NFL level. The reason why we are avoiding a player like Keyshawn Vaughn in 2020 rookie drafts was because he was already at that advanced 22, 23-year-old range. And we know that really drops your hit rate down. Here with Deandre Swift, he checks that box. And he also checks the size box. I know this is another thing that kind of goes under the radar because he's only 5'8", 212 pounds. A lot of people want to view him as undersized, but I say this all the time when we are trying to evaluate whether a running back has the frame to be a 3-down guy. What I want to look at is I want to look at the BMI, which is what Deandre Swift has in the 87th percentile for NFL running backs. And then if we go to his 40 time, which in my opinion is the most important factor in these running backs coming into the NFL. I don't care about 40 time at wide receiver. Generally at wide receiver, we care more about route running and what you can do after the catch. With running backs, it's extremely important as we rarely ever see guys that have subpar athleticism make a difference at the NFL level. Whereas Deandre Swift came out here and he ran a 4.48 40-yard dash, which put him in the 80th percentile for his size-adjusted speed score. This is the best way that we can look at what happens at the NFL Combine, in my opinion. And then if we also look at what he did in Georgia, I'll say right now, it's not the same production profile that we have with the Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he does not come close to that production, but he has multiple excuses of why that production was not there. I mean, his freshman year at Georgia, he was playing alongside Sony Michel and Nick Chubb in 2018. I mean, clearly you're not going to be expecting an 18-year-old Deandre Swift to be able to play over them. And then the following year, he was splitting a backfield with Elijah Holyfield. I know Elijah Holyfield was not an impact player at the NFL level, but going into the draft process, a lot of people actually really liked Elijah Holyfield, and they thought that he was going to be a guy that had a role on an NFL offense. Then he flamed out at the NFL Combine, put on some of the worst athletic numbers that we have ever seen. But then he finally got his opportunity in Georgia in 2019, and he really was able to excel. And where he excelled was he was an excellent receiver. I mean, this is where his strength is. I said this so many times on the main channel when I was talking about Deandre Swift in our start set decisions, and that Deandre Swift, because of his receiving ability, does not need to be a running back that is seeing every single touch in his backfield. He is going to be a running back that's fitting the same mold of an Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara, and that, yes, he may not see every touch in that backfield, but what he is going to see is he is going to see all the valuable touches in terms of the receptions as well as the usage at the goal line. Those are the two roles on an offense that really carry a ton of weight for fantasy production, and he already had a ton of fantasy production his rookie season. He was the running back 17 in points per game on the entire season, but if we take out the very beginning of the year, and if we look at weeks, I believe it was 6 through 16, I believe the Lions had a bye in week 5. This is after his bye week. Deandre Swift was the running back 10 in points per game, clearly an incredible mark, and this was because he had 3.6 receptions per game. And if we look across the entire NFL, the only running backs that were able to match that number was Alvin Kamara, obviously. I mean, if he comes anything close to Alvin Kamara, that would be an insane hit. Also, Christian McCaffrey, same thing here. Austin Eckler, same thing here. But the thing is, with Austin Eckler, he does not get that goal line usage. So I would argue that I would much prefer having Deandre Swift going forward than Austin Eckler, combined with the fact that Deandre Swift is on his rookie contract. And also the other running backs were Myles Gaskin. Myles Gaskin, yes, was a fantastic option this past season once Jordan Howard was made a healthy and active. And that Myles Gaskin was very similar to these other running backs, seeing the receptions as well as the usage at the goal line. But clearly, we can't put Myles Gaskin anywhere near this range with his uncertain job of 2021. And then we also have two pure receiving running backs in J.D. McKissic and Nyheim Hines. Now, obviously, there's always going to be a player fitting this mold here. And what makes Deandre Swift different is not only is he a much better running back, but he also has that goal line usage that J.D. McKissic and Nyheim Hines just do not see. And that is where so much fantasy production comes from. Now, if we try to look at what is going to be the Detroit Lions running back situation in 2021, obviously we are not going to have Adrian Peterson. That's going to make a big difference in terms of just the raw number of touches that Deandre Swift is going to see in this offense. And honestly, I think it may make the offense a little bit better. And then also we have Kerryon Johnson on the last year of his contract. And because of the recent investment into Deandre Swift in the second round of the 2020 NFL Draft, as well as Kerryon Johnson still being under contract for one more year, I think Kerryon Johnson may be a shield to make sure that no other running back is coming into this situation. I think the Detroit Lions front office looks at their running back room in Kerryon Johnson, who was selected in the second round of the 2018 NFL Draft and is still an extremely young player, and Deandre Swift, who they just took in the very beginning of the second round of the 2020 NFL Draft, and they assume that this is going to be enough. And then also, we know that the quarterback situation is going to be extremely stable. Matthew Stafford is under contract for the next few seasons, and really the Detroit Lions have no incentive to move on from that. And then also we understand that a new coaching staff is coming here. I think that everyone is on the same page in assuming that Matt Patricia was a subpar NFL coach who got that job because of Bill Belichick. Well, now I think that we're going to have, at the very minimum, the lateral move to a new NFL coach, and possibly it could be an upgrade for this overall offense, which would clearly be very exciting for Deandre Swift. So if we're viewing Deandre Swift in Dynasty leagues going forward, I think that we have to be viewing him as a mid to maybe a low-end running back one. I'm going to have him a lot higher than most, though, because we know since his bye, I mean, he's already a low running back one in fantasy, and he has one of the safest value propositions, and that he is tied to that rookie contract. He's going to have this role on his offense for a very long time. So Deandre Swift is a player that I do not want to move for pretty much anything, unless you're giving me someone like Jonathan Taylor, unless you're giving me someone like Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley. I mean, I don't even think there's a single wide receiver in Dynasty that I would prefer having over Deandre Swift. If I was picking in the middle of the first round of a startup draft, I would easily be taking Deandre Swift over players like Ezekiel Elliott and even these other players that are currently in their prime, but they have cliffs coming soon in Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, and Alvin Kamara. Now, I understand if you are new to Dynasty Fantasy Football or you don't play leagues at volume, maybe you think that sounds crazy, but I promise you, Deandre Swift is a much better asset than a Derrick Henry or Dalvin Cook at this point in their respective NFL careers, because I want to remind everyone on how short that running back life is, and by just saying real quick, Todd Gurley is 26 years old. Le'Veon Bell, 28 years old. David Johnson has not had a good year since 2016. I mean, these are three running backs that were very similar to Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, in that they were the best running backs in the entire NFL. Then you give them that second contract, and they entirely fall off just because of the nature of the position. I mean, also just look at Ezekiel Elliott this past season. I know we can blame it on the line. I know we can blame it on the quarterback change, but still, these veteran running backs are going to be worth significantly less than these guys on their rookie contracts.